The session will kick off with Tsai, who is a special guest here today from Vancouver. He is the Director of Learning Networks, Ashoka, Canada. He leads a 3-year initiative to engage 30 colleges and universities in strengthening support for change making and social innovation. He is leading a series of national initiatives, including events, campaign, and social special projects. Charles is a former reporter and producer for CNN. He ventured into social sector in 2005, and he started the Global Youth Fund, a charity based in Vancouver. And in 2008, he joined Ashoka to launch global campaigns supporting young social entrepreneurs. Ashoka, as you may know, is the largest network of social entrepreneurs anywhere in the world. He has mentored hundreds of young change makers through Global Youth Fund and Ashoka's youth venture. Charles writes about social innovation at socialcreative.org and Huffington Post. Please help me welcome Charles, and he will today tell us about a little bit about Ashoka, a little bit about himself, and launch the Ashoka's Changemakers Challenge. Charles.
So great to be here. I'm here in Toronto specifically to launch our Changemaker Challenge nationally, but it's targeted at university students, so it may not apply to many of you, but really what the challenge is about is how to create change in a networked world. So that's the theme I'm going to speak to and explain why we are taking the approach that we're taking. This theme has emerged recently for me, even though I've been with Ashoka since 2008. And Ashoka has been electing leading social entrepreneurs all around the world for the last 30 years and has really helped to put that concept into the public sphere. And so we spent a lot of time figuring out who's a social entrepreneur and who to bring into our network. So we go through a very extensive process that looks at not just at the person's idea, but who they are. So if you ever want to become an Ashoka Fellow, it's not just the project that you have to present, it's your whole being, and it's a very exhaustive process. But so from that, what we've learned is that social entrepreneurs aren't just about this idea or that idea. They're really about trying to live a different way, trying to act in the world in a different way. And they're trying to act from their values, and they're trying to create new possibilities wherever they are. And so that pattern begins to surface, early on, often when they're in their teen years. And this is why, from all the 3,000 Ashoka Fellows that we've elected, we've learned a very key lesson, which is that we need to engage people when they're as young, as early as possible, so that the mindset is instilled in them that they can create change, that they can create new possibilities. So I'm part of a bigger team at Ashoka working on education, working on youth engagement, and I'm focused on Canada and how do we transform the education system in Canada so that we're not just trying to prepare young people for jobs, in this sector or that sector, but we're really trying to create change makers, people who can look at the status quo and say, how can I make this better? So we have several initiatives, and pretty soon we're launching a series with the Globe and Mail to examine the purpose of education and asking the question, what is education for? So taking a step back and asking different voices to help us think about education differently. But so I'll just skip through this. I started at Ashoka, working on their youth program, Ashoka's Youth Venture, and mentoring and funding hundreds of youth-led social ventures all around the world. and including in Canada, this is a team in Vancouver that started a project called Fusion Kitchen, where they involved immigrant women to teach cooking classes, and through that try to develop various skills that can lead to longer-term employment. And so this has been one of our success stories in engaging youth. But as we think about how do we transform the system more profoundly, we realize that there's a different social architecture at work now in the world that we live in. It's the society that we live in now isn't just defined by institutions that we need to engage. It's increasingly defined by the networks that we are part of. And so we realize that a lot of change and a lot of learning is driven by networks. And as change makers, as social entrepreneurs, we have to think about what networks do we plug into and what networks can support our growth as social entrepreneurs. So it requires a different mindset, and it doesn't mean that institutions aren't important. It just means that there's a lot of power and a lot of potential in networks that we need to consider and leverage. So let's just look at a few differences between institutions and networks and where the differences lie. And I think the best way to look at that is to just look at some innovations that we're familiar with, Wikipedia, and how it's different from the printed encyclopedias that we may have grown up with, and just how one product is completely different in its business model, in its distribution model, and everything. Everything's different about it. And Wikipedia has decimated thousands and tens of thousands of jobs, in North America especially. But I don't think you would say that Wikipedia has taken away value, right? In fact, it's added value in exponential ways, to our current reality. So we need to think about value very differently, and we need to think about innovation very differently. Another example that's kind of happening right now is Rosetta Stone versus Duolingo. Rosetta Stone is a very popular product that's created by a company to help people learn languages in a different way, in a very interactive way, and it's been a huge success. But now there's this new product coming along called Duolingo that helps people learn languages for free, and it's harnessing the collective wisdom, the collective input of thousands and tens of thousands of people all around the world. And so it just goes to show that whatever product and service you have, someone's going to come along and try to disrupt it and try to undermine the entire business model that you may have. So you may still have a brick and mortar store and still try to make money in a fairly traditional way, but be prepared that someone may come along and offer something for free, offer something for much cheaper, and how are you going to respond to that? But Duolingo is essentially built on a network mindset. And I won't go into the details of Duolingo, but it's worth looking into their business model and how they plan to provide free language lessons to people. So just a few key differences between institutional and network mindset. Institutions tend to be centralized and closed, and they tend to try to harness power in order to have more customers, and they tend to be structured in a hierarchical way, and they are built to withstand competition, and they tend to broadcast their message out to large numbers of people. Whereas networks, within networks, it tends to be much more decentralized and open, and instead of trying to gain power, what they're going after is influence. and they tend to be structured in a very flat way, and they emphasize collaboration. And instead of broadcasting messages to strangers that they never hear from, their goal is to engage, a smaller group of people who are more committed to their product or their service. So change in a network world requires a different type of change maker. And I think the best way to really see what this means and what this looks like is to go to places where there are a lot of networked-oriented change makers. And where you can find that is on today's crowdfunding platforms. And so, as you all know, crowdfunding has been this very recent phenomenon where a lot of people are trying to introduce new ideas and new passion projects. And so I haven't just observed the phenomenon, I've been a diehard customer. I go on Kickstarter all the time to buy all kinds of silly stuff, and Indiegogo as well. And so, the things I buy include silly little things like board games, but they also may include projects that are designed to produce social impact, like this one out of Montreal, where a group of young people try to build a greenhouse that is 100% off the grid and can grow vegetables and fruits all year round. And the way they're doing it is in a very open way. They're putting all the information, all the knowledge that they're gaining up online in toolkits and letting everyone know how they're building this greenhouse so that you can build a similar greenhouse wherever you are. Now, obviously, I'm not going to build a greenhouse, but I believe in the open nature of their project and in their willingness to spread their knowledge. So that's why I backed them. And they were trying to raise $10,000 and they got $28,000 for their project. And another product that I've backed, which is a bit controversial, is this thing that someone created to promote health and well-being and also try to address world hunger. And so essentially it's like a smoothie, it's a drink that you can consume and live on, and not have to eat food. So essentially he figured out, he's a young engineer who looked into what nutrients do our body need. And he created from scratch a mixture that you can live on. And so now he's released the ingredients for everyone to see, right? So you can just take his list of ingredients and try to create it yourself. But he knew that people didn't want to go through the hassle of making their own mixture and sourcing all the ingredients. So he decided to do it for you. And he ran this crowdfunding campaign and got close to $800,000 within a month. So I would check out his project and other projects, and you begin to see a different profile emerge of who's behind these projects. And in short, I would say that there are very often people who are driven by personal passion. So you always hear their personal story and how long they have spent, working away at the idea, before they even come to a crowdfunding platform. They are creative problem solvers, and they're trying to introduce a new product or service. They're very resourceful, so they show other people that even without sufficient funding, they've been able to leverage existing resources and skills to achieve some progress. And they're very good at validating and iterating their ideas. So often when you see their video, you see like 10 different iterations of their product that they've already made on their own. And that they're very good at engaging others in a collaborative team, and they're good at spreading their story through a network. So they're good at telling a story and telling their story, not just pitching a product. And they communicate authenticity and trust, so that that this is something that they didn't just come up with in a workshop. They are passionate about it, and they will continue to work on it, whether you fund them or not. So I think today's investors and funders and today's consumers value this type of passion and dedication and ability to engage. And this is why we think it's worth our while to try to cultivate some of these characteristics and skills in young people. And we've launched a Changemaker Challenge for university students, and we're piloting with some high school students as well, in order for them to experience what it's like to crowdfund and to put their ideas into the world and get feedback. So this is just one, I'll play you a clip from one of our first crowdfunding project so that you can see what the storytelling looks like.
My name is Thomas Lang, I'm 15 and I'm a student at Alpha Secondary in Burnaby, BC. I love sports, I like hanging out with my friends, and I'm very passionate about the environment. I can't really remember when I started recycling because it's just been a way of life for me. When I see someone throw something that should be recycled into the waste bin, or I don't have the chance to recycle something and it needs to go into the waste bin, I kind of feel physically and emotionally that it's not the right thing. I feel that it's morally wrong. Nowadays, it's not good enough just to recycle. Our cities are getting larger and our schools are getting larger. We need to reduce before we recycle. And that's the main goal of the Green Events program, is to help event organizers reduce the amount of waste they even produce. And that's done through a reusable event materials library, which can include things from dinnerware to flatware to decorations that they use a lot at school events. The first time we implemented the Green Events program was at a pancake breakfast at my school. We used dinnerware and flatware, reusable, so ceramic and metal, and we used those and we implemented that, and it worked really well. Students liked it. It looked a lot better than just paper plates and plastic forks. It looked a lot cleaner. It was awesome because there was so much less garbage than would have been created.
So since creating this program, his school has used the materials he provides 2,500 times. So 2,500 items in his library has been used by others. And so now he's trying to expand to other schools in Lower Mainland. And even though what he's asking for is funding, what's already happened, and this campaign is going on right now, what's already happened is that the mayor of North Vancouver has personally backed his project and given $25. And just it's created a connection where he's able now to engage the mayor directly and say, hey, what else can we do together? So even though the ask may be for funding, what you end up benefiting is just a lot of people who you otherwise would not have connected with if you hadn't shared your story with a larger network. So with our challenge, what we're doing is we're inviting young people to crowdfund for their project, and there's no deadline, and they just have to be able to raise 50% of their goal, and we will match their funding up to $2,500. And so it's a way to invite students all across Canada to see crowdfunding as a pathway and to develop the skills that they'll gain from doing so. And what we're also trying to show is that even if you're not ready to ask for funding, you may want to turn to your network, for support. So at Capilano University, we have a student who's trying to create a mobile app or a platform in order to help students share items and share skills with one another. He doesn't want to spend money right now to build the technology because he doesn't want to just build it and push it out. Like, he wants to involve his school community to create it with him. And so his video, his project, is asking 200 students to step up and share something on his Facebook page and start a pilot to share. And then from that, they'll decide, what kind of technology to build, what students want to share and how, and they can create a product that's more effective and more useful to their community. And this is just
My name is Daniel Dubois. I'm a fourth-year Capilano University business student. I play on the Capilano University basketball team, and I'm striving to be a social entrepreneur. I started 2 clothing lines. I grew them to sell over 1,000 items across Canada. And I've always been very entrepreneurial, and it's a lot of fun to run a business. It's something that I always wanted to get into. I always thought about possibly going into business after high school. But after high school, I decided to go traveling instead of going to school. And that trip really changed me. I went to Australia and Fiji for 6 months, and I couldn't believe how everyone there is just so willing to share what they have. I stayed at strangers' houses, I borrowed their surfing equipment, their surfboards and their bicycles, and it really changed my life. So when I came home, I went back to university and I had a different mindset. And then I watched Rachel Botsman's TED Talks on the rise of collaborative consumption, and it really helped me redefine wealth instead of what you own, but what you have access to. That's what brought me to ShareShip.
So as you can see from the 2 different examples, they both start out with their personal story, and I think that's common, with many crowdfunding projects where it's a personal story that really will engage your network. So you're not crowdfunding from complete strangers. Some of you will be able to access that network of strangers, but most of you will be engaging people or people like 2 degrees away from you. So it's important for you to represent who you are well. So I think, going back to this list, I mean, it's a different emphasis than the traditional business plan approach, which is very much about information, about knowledge, and things like that. Whereas, I think crowdfunding and the lean startup approach now is very much about being able to improvise, being able to engage, and being very resourceful. So what we're offering is a $25,000 fund, to match crowdfunding by students, and we have a partner in Durham that's putting up another $12,500, and together we have a pot of $37,500, and we hope to use this to spark greater interest in crowdfunding and in matching the crowdfunding of innovators. So we hope that impact investors and foundations will take a look at this approach and maybe mobilize even more resources around crowdfunding so that people are encouraged and incentivized to share their story, to engage larger people in their larger groups of people in their communities around innovations. And we'll see how it goes this year. I'm not guaranteeing that it's going to work flawlessly, but I think it's worth experimenting with, and I think the world is moving towards this direction, and it's important that we as change makers and innovators begin to understand the dynamics that are operating in a world that's defined by networks, that's structured around networks, and we know how to bring people along effectively. We know how to share our stories and we know especially how to co-create, so that innovations are not just about our own ideas, but it's about creating value with others, for the benefit of our communities and our country and ultimately our world. So I'll leave you with my contact information, and I'd love to connect with any of you if you have any questions, and we'll have quite a few resources that we'll share with our students that may benefit you as well when you develop your ideas and your projects. And so I'll just leave it there, and yeah, I welcome your input. Thanks.